जय
जय ओम विष्णु परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज
जय
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव
जय
नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की
जय
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री रसि गौर भक्तवृंद की
जय
श्री राधा कृष्ण कुंज गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज गिरि गोवर्धन की
जय
वृंदावन धाम की
जय
मायापुर धाम की
जय
शांतिपुरी धाम की
जय
गंगामाई की जय
जय
जमुनामाई की जय
जय
भारती देवी की जय श्री तुलसी महारानी की जय सीताराम की जय all pregnant all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivijagacharya Asta Tarasatasi Simad His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Paramahansa Parivijagacharya Asta Tarasatasi Simad His Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Ko Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Gaur Pemanandi.
If you'd like to present something, we can move it.
No, I don't need to do that. Thanks. Look at these garlands, gosh. The deities aren't going to dress themselves, are they?
My wife and Sudhati Mantri.
Really?
Yeah, they start.
You're not going to be there at all? Okay. Plan. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I thought I would read a verse this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, or that not morning, afternoon, evening, Canto 2, Chapter 3, text number 22. 22. And the chapter, Pure Devotional Service, Change in Heart, and one of the essential steps in pure devotional service is this nice description about deity worship. So I'm going to read the verse and purport we'll discuss a little bit. The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead Vishnu, his forms, name, qualities, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of a peacock, and the legs which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered are considered to be like tree trunks. And mainly, not so much about the tree trunks, but mainly about the deity worship in the purport. Especially for the householder devotees, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended as far as possible. Every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Vishnu, forms like Radha, Krishna, Lakshmi, Narayana, or Sitaram especially, or any other form of the Lord like Nrsimha Varaha, Gaurnitai, Matsya, Kurma, Shalagram Shila, and many other forms of Vishnu, like Trivikram Keshava, Achyuta Vasudeva, Narayana, and Damodar, as they are recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas. And one should worship the deity with one's family, following the directions and regulations of Archana Vidhi. Any member of the family who is above 12 years of age should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, and all the members of the household should be engaged in the daily service of the Lord, beginning from morning 4 a.m. till night 10 p.m. by performing Mangala Arti, Niranjana Archana Puja, Kirtan, Shringar, Bhoga, Vaikali, Sandhya Arti, Patan Bhoga at night, Shayana Arti, etc. Engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master will greatly help the householders to purify their very existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. Simple theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for a neophyte devotee. Book knowledge is theoretical, whereas the archana process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge, and that is the guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. The paragraph. The training of devotional service for a neophyte devotee completely depends on the expert spiritual master who knows how to lead his disciple in making gradual progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. One should not become a pseudo spiritual master as a matter of business to meet one's family expenditures. One must be an expert spiritual master to deliver the disciple from the clutches of impending death. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has defined the bona fide qualities of a spiritual master. And one of the verses in that description reads, Shri Vigrahara Dhananityanana Shringara Tan Mandira Marjanadao Yuktasya Bhaktams Chaniyunjatopi Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. Shri Vigraha is the archa, or suitable worshipable form of the Lord, and the disciple should engage in worshipping the deity regularly by Shringara, proper decoration and dressing, as also by Mandira Marjana, the matter of cleansing the temple. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotee all these kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental name, quality, form, etc. of the Lord. Only attention engaged in the service of the Lord, especially in dressing and decorating the temple, accompanied by musical kirtan and spiritual instructions from the scriptures, can save the common man from the hellish attractions and rubbish sex songs broadcast everywhere by radios and more modern media too. If one is unable to maintain a temple at home, he should go to another's temple where all the above performances are regularly executed, visiting the temple of a devotee and looking at the profusely decorated forms of the Lord, well dressed and decorated. Sanctified temple naturally infuse the mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan, where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. Formerly, all rich men, like kings and rich merchants, constructed such temples under the direction of expert devotees of the Lord like the 6 Goswamis, and it is the duty of the common man to take advantage of these temples and festivals observed in the holy places of pilgrimage by following in the footsteps of great devotees. Anu Vraja. One should not visit all these sanctified pilgrimage places and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one must go to such temples and sanctified places immortalized by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and be guided by proper men who know the science. This is called Anu Vraja. Anu means to follow. It is therefore best to follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master, even in visiting temples and the holy places of pilgrimage. One who does not move in that way is as good as a standing tree, condemned by the Lord not to move. The moving tendency of the human being is misused by visiting places for sightseeing. The best purpose of such traveling tendencies could be fulfilled by visiting the holy places established by great acharyas and thereby not being misled by the atheistic propaganda of money-making men who have no knowledge of spiritual matters. It's a classic purport. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's an already full altar and now it's more full. And you're going to be the pujari? No. Mom and Dad? You're going to do something. Which part are you going to do? You'll watch, you'll learn. Yeah, something like that. Because you're next in line. You'll have to learn. The history of deity worship in ISKCON is very interesting and creative. How Srila Prabhupada, for example, how Srila Prabhupada established many of the things that he wanted to see his devotees eventually do, but knowing that they weren't qualified, so he just very slowly, easily, gently introduced. And when there was someone ripe and ready, and then he encouraged and fanned that spark. I remember clearly in the Boston Temple, there were artists, two groups of artists, ones that painted for the books and others that painted for the altars. The altar painting was what Prabhupada called the Guru Gauranga altar. Guru, so that's just a photograph of Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, or just Prabhupada, and the Gauranga was Panchatattva painting. So there was a team of devotees that they made Panchatattva paintings, after Panchatattva paintings, and the next place, they were carefully packed and shipped and then that was the worship. Guru Gauranga altar. And with with what was appropriate for the Mangal Arti and the practices and procedures, and different songs at different times of the day and so forth. I don't know the history, but I do know the little bit of history of Jagannath worship. Maybe some of you know the history from Lilamrita. In San Francisco, one of the first temples, Srila Prabhupada was visiting there, and Malati, the story goes, Malati was in a Pier 1 import store, and she saw these little Jagannath deities, the Jagannath carved deities that are one piece of wood, and there's the three deities. So she thought, oh, this looks Indian. So she took them to show and ask Prabhupada, is this something we should be aware of? And Prabhupada paid his obeisances, and in the course of that first introduction, he turned to Malati's husband, Shyamasundar, and asked if he could carve deities, and then when the answer was yes, because Prabhupada asked you to do something, it was yes. And so then, he gave directions, how tall they should be, and this and that, and then at a certain deadline, and then the plan of the building a Rath Yatra cart for the deities, and so forth. So that's Jagannath deity. Now before, in the earlier stages, I don't know the history, there's probably some history of Gaur-Nitai being worshipped, but it's something that was just fan the spark, because from Panchatattva painting to Gaur-Nitai deity is a big step, because there's procedures and so forth. He indicated, this is my recollection, I don't know any direct instruction to this effect, but Gaur-Nitai and Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, the stricture in avoiding offense was less severe, and there was caution about installing Radha Krishna worship, because that's a very high standard, very strict practices. But in certain places and situations, he did permit. He not only permitted, he arranged and encouraged. And in this way, the standard of the practice of deity worship became introduced. And then the standards of deity worship in some devotees at that time, and now even today, have become quite proficient in procedures and standards. The procedures, depending upon the enthusiasm and fastidiousness of the pujari, it can be very simple with simple procedure, with basic elements that are indicated in this purport. And then it can be more elaborate and more elaborate and more elaborate, just like the procedure for the installation. There's principles, and then more elaborate, more elaborate, more elaborate, but principles, very simple. It's like a wedding. Just recently, I agreed, because of a family I've known for so many years, 28 years. Their daughter, who's like now 26, she got married. It was a 5-day wedding. I didn't participate in the 5-day wedding. But the first day was nurturing. It's just like this is some taking off on detail. You never know, huh? Quiet until something. Yes?
She was in
She was what?
She was in deep sleep. And as soon as he kept her down, then
She woke up.
yes, she woke
That was it. Okay, okay. This is a for example of something that's more detailed as opposed to something that's very simple. The more detailed is this 5-day event. The beginning was Nrsimhahoma to remove any possible obstacles, to make the event that has 4+ more days of activities, to remove auspiciousness. Like in a Karmakanda Yaga, the worship of Ganesh is done first and foremost, as to invoke auspiciousness and reduce possible offenses that may have been made or mistakes that may have been made, etc., to remove obstacles. But then for spiritual purposes, it's Lord Nrsimhadev. And again, the point is more elaborate, less elaborate. And our acharyas have compiled texts, and people that like those literatures that have the text of procedures and do's and do nots, there's texts that have scriptural sources, and they are very careful to follow them as best they can. But it in Kali Yuga it's difficult. Therefore, keeping things simple, one of the two most important principles, this is training, that of the many, many, many things that can be done, 2 items are most important: cleanliness and punctuality. You don't skimp on cleanliness. And punctuality means punctuality, not just, a certain, roughly more or less. For those that are householders, it helps you become, to regulate your life, to regulate your worship of the deity. And, when it's time for Mangalarti, it's... A nice example of this, one example, at the Krishna Balaram temple, Prabhupada requested that a bell be set up, a big hanging bell with a, little pestle inside, and with a rope. There was a guard. One of his assignments was exactly on the hour, ring the bell. And Prabhupada's reasoning was, people in Vrindavan don't have watches. At that time they didn't have watches, so they could know what time it was by hearing the bell. And then Srimad Bhagavatam class began promptly at 7:30. And when the class began, in between when the class started and when the class ended, it came 8 o'clock. And the bell was ringing, because the guard, every hour, he's got to ring that bell without fail. So the devotees asked Prabhupada, would you like the bell not to be rung during class? He said, no. The villagers should know. It's 8 o'clock. Punctuality and cleanliness. And the consciousness, that's an external. The internal is because the person who is being worshipped is the Supreme Person. And then there's other things and other things, and one is encouraged to accept other things according to one's capacity to maintain, and then you can increase if you can maintain every day, every day, every day. But every day, because deity worship is serious, because it's the Supreme Lord. Now, non-different than the deity form are other features, the name, the Bhagavatam, and the strictures, religious strictures for chanting of the holy name. There's offenses, of course, but it's not as fastidious in detail of the process of chanting, because in any situation of life, one can chant the holy name. And so even when one is not clean, one can chant the holy name. Wherever, wherever, any circumstance, the chanting of the holy name is appropriate. And that's so with deity worship. So deity worship helps elevate, one way to look at it. It helps to elevate the householder or the worshipper's quality of goodness. Because in this age of Kali, we know the lower modes of nature expand and increase, and the upper modes of nature diminish. So to reverse that tendency, among other things, the deity worship is particularly recommended. Or here it's even stronger, particularly recommended. It's mandatory. Now, mandatory doesn't mean that, when you go home, before you reach your home, find some deity somewhere and engage yourself in deity worship because it's mandated. But it's a principle, a directional principle. And a few other things. Yesterday we had some discussion about Jiva Goswami and his deity worship and how that was arranged. It was directly arranged by Govindaji, we heard. Rupa Goswami was worshipping Govindaji, and Govindaji appeared to him in a dream one night. And in the dream, Govindaji transformed himself into a child form, into the Damodar form. And then in this Damodar form, Damodar or Govindaji, instructed Rupa Goswami, make a deity just like this for your disciple, Jiva Goswami. He transformed himself back into Govindaji and his dream broke. So that's the circumstance of, and then the intimacy of love is described in many places about Jiva Goswami's intimacy. It was beyond regulative. It was in the spontaneous stage of different things. Krishna would play his flute, and Jiva Goswami would sometimes sing, and the deity would dance. Beyond regulative bhakti. Sometimes he would make the offerings. The deity would tell him he would want a certain item to be offered, so he'd go prepare that item, and he'd sit before the altar, and Damodar would eat the offering in front of him, and so forth. I mean, that's super elevated. So we just discussed that yesterday evening. And earlier, some nice discussion. Jagannath Das Babaji, we heard something about his life. And one of the things about his life, although he was a Babaji, so this twice in this purport mention is made of householders, and Jagannath Das Babaji is way beyond any of the 4 orders of spiritual life and 4 ashrams. So he also wanted deity. That the history goes like this. Jagannath Das Babaji was staying at Suryakund. Suryakund is a place in Vrindavan where Radharani would go to worship Suryadev. And Jagannath Das Babaji's spiritual master had his samadhi at that place, somewhere near, by the side of Suryakund. So Jagannath Das Babaji, stayed there, only for that reason, because it's a sacred place where Radharani would come every day and do her worship. One of the Ashtakaliya Leela stops for Radharani during her day. So he had an assistant and he requested the assistant, find a deity that I can worship somewhere. So he did. He went all the way to Navadvip, because he heard there was a particular deity form that was very attractive. He secured the deity. He had the deity painted nicely and cared for nicely, and brought the deity all the way back to Vrindavan and gave to Jagannath Das Babaji for worship. And for some days he worshipped. Now there was a problem. The problem was the deity appeared to be made of gold. Sonar Garanga was the name of the Krishna, the Lord Chaitanya deity. And some plunderers, some dacoits, came in the middle of the night, because there's no formal temple and way secure, so they stole the deity. Or at least they tried to steal the deity. But the circumstance had it that the deity wasn't going to be stolen, and they fell to the ground unconscious. But Jagannath Das Babaji found out the next morning that what had happened, and he told his assistant, give the deities away immediately to some qualified person to worship. So today there's a temple in Vrindavan where the deities were given, Sonar Garanga temple, the deities were given in that place. And after some days, he said, Jagannath Das Babaji said to his assistant, I can't live without a deity. Somewhere, somehow find a deity. And so he left Jagannath Das Babaji's side. The description, historical description, was there was another Babaji that resided at Radhakund, some of his Babaji friend, and they searched and searched in a pile of hay by the side of the Radhakund. They found a deity of the six-armed form, Sadbhuj deity, in disrepair. And so he had the deity repaired and painted and dressed very nicely and brought the deity back. And Jagannath Das Babaji worshipped the deity for some time. And then he felt himself, in his transcendental humility, not qualified for deity worship. He was torn between, I have to have a deity and I'm not qualified to worship the deity. So he requested his disciple to make an arrangement for the deity to be worshipped by someone, a qualified someone. So there's another temple where the Sadbhuja deity worshipped by Jagannath Das Babaji is, his darshan can be had again in now the downtown Vrindavan area. Now then, it wasn't downtown Vrindavan, it was just whatever it was, and that wasn't developed like it is today. And sometime shortly after that, he wanted very much to go to Navadvip, and so the arrangement was made for him to go to Navadvip, see the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's where we're most familiar with hearing about Jagannath Das Babaji, and Gorkishore for that matter, in Navadvip. But before that was a long time, number of years, in Vrindavan, worshipping deity. So the point is, and there's other examples and other examples, of those in the renounced order or very, very spiritually advanced persons that had deity. The deity wanted to be worshipped by them, and they wanted to worship the deity form of the Lord. So it was different than for the householder. For the householder already mentioned, I'll mention a few more points, but one of the mentions is regulation. It helps anyone become regulated, because it's the deity is with regulation and cleanliness. Another principle that Prabhupada taught was in the household life, particularly mentioned as of householders, because the strength of the bodily conception of life, to lift and elevate the bodily conception of life to a spiritual conception of life, although with form, is assisted by worship of the deity. In other words, there's a deity form, or it's sa-guna worship, as opposed to nirguna worship, the worship of form. It helps to elevate the conception of form to a spiritual position. For those who may, by conditioning, think of the self in terms of the body, their own self, and others in terms, and other living entities, not just others, other humans, in terms of the bodily conception of life. So philosophically, it's a major philosophical issue, or different parties have the idea of saguna, nirguna forms, or existence of the Supreme. There's an interesting thing, it's probably worth sharing, but we, as practicing devotees, we should not think of the deity form of the Lord as a means to an end, as the Shankaracharya followers do. Their acceptance, he, Shankaracharya, understood that people have a tendency to worship a form, although his teaching was the absolute truth is without form. So he, Shankaracharya, in his teaching, approved and propagated 5 kinds of worship. In the 5 pancha upasana worship, 5 kinds of worship. And so by name, 5 different deities were authorized forms, with the understanding that the form is a material form, and you worship the material form to achieve an understanding of the impersonal within that form. Because the absolute truth is formless. That's all there is formlessness. So if there's a tendency to worship form, then worship one of these 5 is authorized by Shankaracharya, and you worship one of these 5 or combination, and you're in good shape because you have the right teaching to accompany the worship. The ultimate goal is the formless Brahman. So devotees should be very wary of, not that specific misconception, but just the notion that it's a means to an end, as opposed to the deity form is not different than Krishna. And therefore, from the get-go, when there's deities that are welcomed, then now you're inviting Krishna in your home. So sit straight, because Krishna's in your home. And before Krishna's in your home, prepare yourself to invite Krishna to your home. Prepare yourself for that stage of your practice where you desire very much, and it's authorized by your spiritual masters to engage in deity worship. And when that welcoming comes, so here's a place where they really like Krishna in their home. If he was here, I would ask him, what was the inspiration behind? Do you have the answer? The answer behind your father's idea that along with the existing deities, in addition to the existing deities, Sitaram?
But where we're from in India, they're highly regarded. It might have been
From his growing up. It's in his system. So, okay. Does he read Ramayana regularly? Yes?
Growing up, we did.
Growing up. Of late, you don't know. Do you currently, in recent, period of time, do you read Ramayana regularly?
I did one and a half year before, but after that I shared you my desires.
After that, what happened?
No, after that I did not.
You didn't?
After the installation.
Okay. Your daughter, because you weren't here, so you're growing up. The part of India in which you grow up, Ramayana, worship of the deity of Ramachandra was.
I grew up that way only, by reading Ramcharitmanas and playing the role in the
So not Valmiki Ramayana, but Ramcharitamanas.
Yes, mostly.
Which state?
UP, Banaras.
Okay. Okay. Ramcharitamanas is there are a lot of ISKCON devotees. That was what they lived with when they were young.
His Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj,
He likes, but not just him. Many. At least I've interacted with many that have that upbringing. So you tell me when the deities are ready to come.
almost in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So any discussion or comments or questions, Piari?
Yes. A few questions. In the beginning, the verse itself.
Yeah, there's a little button on the side. There's a little button on the side. Okay, you're good.
Hari Bol, wow.
Oh.
In the verse itself, it says something about worshiping I forget the word.
Should I find the verse? I'll
If
read
you
the
can
verse.
find it,
Right.
yeah.
I have the verse. It's right here. My memory is my computer.
Well, I can't see it, but just read it.
The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representation.
The symbolic, that's the symbolic. How is it symbolic? The form. That's my first question.
I'm waiting for my computer to. There, it woke up. Okay, went to sleep. See what the Sanskrit word is. All the word is lingani. Forms. Lingani, forms. So, my, why symbolic? Having to do with the audience.
That's what I would think.
The understanding of the acharya, understanding his audience, and knowing that, like, whoa, to deity forms, and how strong is he going to be about this one. So it's not symbolic in the sense that it represents something. The deity form is the Lord.
Right.
Next.
No, that was a very good answer. I'm satisfied with that. Makes perfect sense. Next is, when Srila Prabhupada was here, he didn't seem to have the householders worshiping deities at home.
That's right.
And Bhakti Siddhanta, when they get initiated, no one should worship deities at home except those who worship deities before they got into the Gaudiya Math. And otherwise, they just have pictures of the temple deities and they worship them. And Prabhupada did not exactly that, but very similar.
Well, the part of history that you're referring to was my understanding of the history of ISKCON. He emphasized householders to live in temples. And then if there were householders that had children or wanted children, there was the Grihastha ashram for householders. And this was not just LA in a big complex. It was, that was the practice during Prabhupada's time. There were householders. He encouraged household life, but in temples, somehow. and very austere and very this and very that, but not so much with their own house and their own this and that and the other thing. No, that's the initiated ISKCON devotees. That was like the standard. There wasn't so many Indian families who were initiated devotees. They lived their life, but by and large, it was that in India it's a different thing, but in the West, it's the young Western boys and girls and become married and living that temple-centric life. Then it started going in that direction after some time. That's my picture of chronology.
Yeah, I would think because they also, when they did move out, they lived very, very close to the temple, and they're supposed
And
to go to
worshipped
the
in
temple,
the temple
program.
Yes, yes.
And now people live
Yeah.
far away.
Okay. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So my question is similar to the same context. So recently I read that in the purport only, like Prabhupada says, he was talking about two vidhi. One is Pancharatrika vidhi and other is the Bhagavad vidhi.
Okay, got it.
And he says that our parampara is more focused on the Bhagavad vidhi rather than Pancharatrika vidhi. So what I understood, Pancharatrika vidhi is mainly deity worship, whereas Bhagavad vidhi is like hearing, chanting, reading.
Preaching.
So preaching. So our parampara is more on focus on hearing, chanting focus rather than
Yeah.
deity worship.
Yeah.
Can you please explain?
Yeah. There's no explanation. What you said is correct. At least that's the approach that Srila Prabhupada emphasized. And thus, different than Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who had Gaur Gadadhar deities, Srila Prabhupada had emphasized Gaur Nitai. In fact, many of us didn't even know about Gaur Gadadhar deities until, history told us that that's the worship that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. But Gaur Nitai for preaching. So the dynamic, I'm just embellishing what you said. There's just not anything new. But the emphasis of our founder Acharya was expanding by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, the giver of bhakti, and he wanted us to be assisting Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda to expand bhakti all over the world, every town and village. And so that was the dynamic. Book distribution, everything. Harinam, Prasadam distribution, go. And in many cases, in many places, that's very much the same emphasis. But even where there's deity, the emphasis is more on the preaching, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., Bhagavad Vidhi. And the Bhagavatam, and in relation to Bhagavan. Distinct from the deity worship in details of deity worship. Fastidiousness in the details of deity worship. Okay? Yes.
Hi Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. So my question is, not everyone has inclination to deity worship. How can we gradually develop the service mood into our deities in our house?
The association. And it's in the, like this particular example, it's in the books, just like this purport, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service, Change in Heart, it's in their books. So you read the books, and then you'll hear, and then when you hear and it goes in, then you want to do. And you want to do, you learn from those that know. And they're very generous with their time and energy. And they'll explain. Association, Sadhu Sangha. Okay. We're ready for the deity. Yes, ready for the deity. The magic microphone.
Is it on?
Go ahead.
Okay. I believe I read in one of the Prabhupada's perpetual calendars about the Bhagavad Gita and the Pancharatrika Vidi being two rails for the train.
Yes.
That we need both.
Yes.
Pancharatrika Vidi for personal development and the Bhagavad Gita.
That's what he says here. Theoretical and impractical.
Yeah.
At the same time, what he said is also true. There's a greater emphasis of the two rails. There's greater emphasis, so it becomes more. It's not a mono rail, but it's more emphasis, more significance placed on it.
One other thing, I was wondering if you heard the two principles about cleanliness and punctuality.
Yes.
But a third being present.
A third is
Being present.
being present. I've not heard that one.
Not conscious.
It makes sense, but I've not heard that one.
Yeah, I was told that Jamuna said that she was taught that from Prabhupada. That she was told.
By Prabhupada.
Cleanliness, punctuality, and be present.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Conscious.
So what's that mean, being present?
Conscious of what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Not your mind somewhere else, but you're there.
Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai.